Ireland is the world's third largest producer of pharmaceuticals, and the industry is currently bringing in around €1 billion a year in tax revenue for the government. So, how will the Irish respond to the threat of President Trump's tariffs? Hello and welcome to another special edition of Roundtable. I'm Enda Brady and this time I'm on the road again here in Cork in my home country of Ireland. Now, the pharmaceutical industry accounts for about 45% of all Irish exports. It employs 50,000 people here, and it's one of the major reasons why the Irish government is able to run a huge budget surplus. It's big business. So what impact could President Trump's tariffs have on the pharma industry in Ireland? And how will the Irish respond?
The port of Cork on Ireland's south coast, where every year tens of billions of euros worth of pharmaceutical products are shipped around the world. What were once sleepy fishing villages just a few decades ago now house dozens of pharma factories, making this area an economic powerhouse. Ireland's medical exports are on the up, hitting a record of €100 billion last year, with most of them being exported to the United States.
They have transformed Cork City. The pharmaceutical industries, they pay very, very well. And everybody that, works around them, like the subcontractors, the farmers that supply into these, because they all have big canteens and big facilities, and all of the, the various other suppliers, and then all of the hotels and restaurants that I suppose that feed off of them. I cannot describe the kind of, the effect that it has had on our society. It has completely changed.
But one man could turn this economic miracle into a nightmare.
We do have a massive deficit with Ireland, because Ireland was very smart. They took our pharmaceutical companies away from presidents that didn't know what they were doing. The EU was set up in order to take advantage of the United States.
Including Ireland? Is Ireland taking advantage of the US?
Of course they are.
Many take Trump's remarks with a pinch of salt, but not everyone.
Obviously, we talk about threats. I think they're very, very, very real, and I don't think we take them seriously enough. I mean, we've had, obviously with the new tariffs of 15%, and I suppose I've been very, very concerned about this for some time.
While many of its neighbours struggle with sluggish growth and spiralling debt, Ireland is one of the few EU nations running a budget surplus, thanks to the income from multinational corporations. But its membership of the European Union, once seen as an economic boon, could become a muzzle, silencing the roar of this Celtic tiger.
Well, let's bring in our panel on this one. I'm delighted to say we have with us Jonathan Healy. Jonathan is a broadcaster and he is also managing partner of Ireland's leading PR firm, Healy Communications. And we have with us Seamus Coffey, who is a lecturer in economics at University College Cork, UCC. Seamus is also chair of the Irish Fiscal Advisory Council. And we have Barry Boland, who is a lecturer in pharmacology at University College Cork, UCC. You're all very welcome to Roundtable. Jonathan, to you, this has been a huge success story for a very long time now for the Irish government.
It has, and it's been a success story that's been decades in the making, Enda, because if you go back in history, and we'll get better views of it in a moment, but Ireland economically, after the Second World War, was a basket case. It was protectionist, it didn't have any exports, it really struggled to find its place economically. Then the IDA, the Industrial Development Authority, was set up and became a semi-state organisation in the 1960s with the sole purpose of attracting in foreign direct investment to Ireland. So bringing in companies that were not from Ireland, but who could use Ireland as a base and use the talent pool that is here to build. Over time, it became a significant contributor to the Irish economy. There are various different reasons for that. The first of which probably would be a favourable tax regime that allowed them to come here, various different tax loopholes that were closed off over time. But now what we have is an incredibly embedded foreign direct investment portfolio in Ireland. Some of the biggest names in the world have their European, Middle East and African headquarters here and continue to grow, continue to invest despite all that has gone on globally in recent times.
Seamus, to you, the Irish government has been very clever here, haven't they? It's been a great strategy. It's paid huge dividends.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you could say that the Irish government and Irish policies has got lucky. So going back to Jonathan's point about targeting foreign investment, a number of sectors were targeted back 60, 70 years ago. And of those, like 6 or 7 turned out to be huge successes. And of course, pharmaceutical manufacturing is one of those. Now, what sectors were targeted? Really, it was stuff that was small. Is either services, and we've moved to online services, or stuff that's small to manufacturing, like the active ingredients in pharmaceutical products, which you can send a small container of, could be worth millions of euro. So we don't manufacture cars, we don't manufacture steel. We're not a heavy industry country, we're a peripheral nation, an island nation off the west coast of Europe. So small things for manufacture, high-tech things for manufacture were targeted. And as Jonathan said, like many of those are here now for a long, long time. If you take some of the companies around Cork where we are today, like Pfizer came in 1969, Pepsi, which we mightn't directly relate to pharmaceuticals, but is sort of that level of manufacturing in 1974, and Eli Lilly in 1978. Like these companies are here decades. Like some families have had generations that have worked through these companies over the years. And now they've built up, Ireland has built up a very significant reputation. Like why would those companies put multi-billion euro investment into countries like Ireland? It wouldn't necessarily be for tax. Now, tax gets you on the field, and that is important. But when companies are looking at making multi-billion euro investments, which some of them have done around here with some of the plants they put in, you have to have the reputation to deliver. And it seems that Ireland has built up that reputation in terms of the services, the electricity network, the water network, planning information. The companies seem to be able to work around areas where in other sectors of the economy there does seem to be problems. When it comes to manufacturing, that high-end manufacturing has been a huge success. And as you say, it has benefited the government. We have the employment. Like we've gone from a position where, as Jonathan says, 60, 70, 80 years ago, we had lots of people, but no jobs. And the people left, and the idea was set up to try and turn that around. Now we're in a position where we have lots of jobs, lots of money, and are trying to bring people in. So the Irish economy has been a rapid and huge, not necessarily a rapid, but a dramatic transformation over that period of time. And the pharmaceuticals, the US investment has played a very significant role in that.
Barry, to you, so Ireland is doing very well at manufacturing pharmaceutical products. Tell me about the kind of research and development aspect and the academic side of things. Are you seeing as much growth in young people learning the industry and studying for degrees and PhDs?
Well, yeah, as I was an undergraduate in pharmacology, there was an evolution really of courses available to students. So there's been a push to have highly skilled workforce. So postgraduate courses, master's courses, PhDs, postgraduate diplomas for manufacturing really has been the real drive. From the academic discovery point of view, I would say we could do more and engage more with companies to invest in the third level sector to increase innovation in this area.
Thanks, Barry. Jonathan, talk to me about the money side of things, because Ireland's government is running a very significant budget surplus, the envy of Europe really. And a lot of that is driven by the tech sector, of course, but big pharma in Ireland and in Cork.
Yeah, we have done an event yesterday in Little Island, which is it's just outside the city centre, but has this incredible cluster of companies that have been established here for decades. And the obvious question is, when is it going to end? When are we going to run out of road and run out of luck? And this is something that causes great anxiety at government level, because we are now using the money, that excess money, to keep our hospitals going, to build our roads, to ensure that our education system is funded. If the tap is ever turned off, we're in trouble. But the mood is still buoyant because of the fact that we have managed consistently throughout time to evolve to meet the needs of these companies. And for example, when it all started out, and it was good old-fashioned manufacturing, the actual making of the pills that were then exported. Then it moved to active ingredients. Then it moved to biotechnology. Then it moved to perhaps medical devices. Ireland has really exporting some of the most significant medical devices are all made here. And you go into these incredible facilities, these clean rooms that are massive, and they're creating things that are saving people, stents that are being installed right around the world. All of those mean that Ireland is consistently at the right end of the sector. So we're not losing out. So, and that's where Ireland has been successful, but that's what needs to be maintained. And when we talk about tariffs and we talk about what might change, there's less anxiety around that, because we do so much here. We are complementing what's happening in the United States. And a lot of the companies that are here have US bases, and they're expanding there too, in support rather than in competition with what we're doing here.
Thanks, Jonathan. Seamus, talk to me about President Trump and his views of the pharmaceutical industry in Ireland, because I don't know if he's jealous, but he wants these companies to move back home.
Absolutely, and it is a considerable risk for Ireland. If we look at employment in manufacturing as a whole, about 25% of the total employment in manufacturing in Ireland is in US companies. So they're clearly playing an outsized role within the Irish economy, and clearly then US policy is a risk. It's nothing new with President Trump. It's been a risk now for going close on 20 years. When Barack Obama was elected president back in 2008, he first proposed a Patriot Act, which sounds like something Donald Trump would do, but it sort of had similar inclinations of getting US companies to invest in the US. Now, maybe not to the same extent that Donald Trump was pushing, but it was there. President Biden had similar with the Make America First, and now Donald Trump in his second presidency is clearly pushing it. And one issue is that, yes, these companies have very large manufacturing facilities in countries like Ireland, but they also have a global presence, and they have supply chains that spread from country to country. Now, with some of the high-tech drugs that have been developed in recent years, particularly when it comes to weight loss drugs, actually in Ireland, some of those companies with the patents have been able to get the manufacturing up and running first. And there's been a huge surge in exports from Ireland back to the US. And this has sort of pricked the ears of Donald Trump. Like, why are we sending 70 or 80 billion euro to Ireland to buy products from US companies? Now, traditionally, when those companies came to Ireland first, as we said back in the 60s and 70s, they came to Ireland to service international markets. Ireland was a beachhead to Europe and Asia and other markets around the world. And the US was largely a domestic sector that their manufacturing there has handled. But in recent years, because of the stepping up that Ireland has done, the high-tech drugs that are now manufactured here, we see more Ireland being sort of a global centre for the active ingredients of these drugs, and lots of that going back to the US. And that has caught the attention of Donald Trump. Now, there has been various announcements from companies, but I think it's more expanding their manufacturing base rather than moving it. Like, these companies need a diversified manufacturing base. If, say, Cork is the only plant in the world where they make the active ingredient for their products, that's a high risk for them. So they should have a second facility somewhere else. If Ireland was servicing international markets and did a facility, say, in Indiana servicing US markets, that would benefit the company and would also seem to placate Donald Trump. Now, when it comes to these risks, there's been a lot of talk over the last 15, 20 years of these risks, but in the main, actually, they've worked in Ireland's favour. Whether it's Donald Trump's changes in terms of tax policy, of course, the UK exit from the European Union. So Ireland is riding the crest of a wave, as Jonathan has pointed out. Most of these changes have benefited us. The employment has gone up. The profits these companies are making have gone up, and the tax the Irish government is collecting has gone up. So we're currently kind of getting the cherry on top. We have the investment, which we saw, we have the employment, and now we have the tax on top. So when Donald Trump puts out a tweet talking about tariffs or changes, it's headline news over here. And the reason it's headline news is just because it's so successful. It will remain a risk, but for the time being at least, we are in a pretty good place.
Barry, are you picking up any nervousness around Trump and the tariff threat?
Well, so having gone through the economic recession we had in 2008, I noticed as an academic that the budgets, the government allocation towards research spending was shrunk very quickly. So I'd sometimes think research, innovation and intellectual property is something we strive for, but it requires investment. And that's where this symbiotic relationship, we provide skilled workforce for companies. It would be nice to see it reciprocated, or at least when the economy is doing very well, some proportion of the profits get back into university for innovation. Now, Enterprise Ireland is a leading example of an agency that helps academics spin out companies here, and we're seeing a burgeoning amount of academics engaging in more applied research and commercialised research. So when it comes to the ripple effect of what could be the tariffs, I would have some concerns that the Irish economy would shrink its investment in research, and that would be a bit worrying for an academic, yeah.
Thank you. Jonathan, just on the money side of things, what kind of budget surplus does Ireland run because of all the money coming in from pharma?
An unusual one is the short answer. And Seamus will have the numbers exactly, but what it means is that we have, and it almost is like the magic money tree is shaken every quarter, and a huge extra couple of billion fall down that we can choose to invest in the future or invest in now. Now, the Irish government, despite the advice of Seamus, has often decided to spend this money, which we know from what happened previously with the crash in 2007, 2008, is not a good thing, because we have looming problems. I mean, Ireland is not without its problems, Enda. We've got a massive housing crisis right now. That is actually having an impact on those pharmaceutical companies, because what is happening there is they say, yes, we have these jobs, but we can't afford to get people to move here because they don't have houses to move into. So, and the government is under criticism to start building houses. It's happening. It's just not happening quickly enough. So there are external threats like Donald Trump, but internal threats as well that could run the risk of the Irish economy either overheating or not preparing for the next rainy day. The very real point is that Ireland has seen what bad looks like. In 2010, our entire economic model was threatened because of a property crash. What had been laid as foundations with the pharmaceutical sector, the technology sector, the services sector, meant that we could emerge from that quicker than perhaps other countries such as Greece could do. I'm not sure we've learned fully yet the risk that will come from the money tree not providing when we shake it. And that is the big challenge for government. If there's a change of government tomorrow, if the current government stays there, I'm not sure that we have done enough to prepare for that eventuality, that external or internal shock that could cause the Irish economy to contract again.
Well, let's ask Ireland's leading economist, Seamus, the money tree. It's a beautiful description by Jonathan. Irish politicians must be rubbing their hands with glee every few months, rattling this tree and seeing billions of euro drop out.
Oh, absolutely. And just to put it in context, just the scale and the impact of the US companies in broad terms on the Irish economy is huge. If you take it employment, you're looking at over 200,000 people being employed in US companies. Now, about 60% of that is in manufacturing, and a large share of that is in pharmaceuticals. If you look at their spend in the economy, their pay bill is about 15 billion euro a year. And we don't expect the viewers to do the sums, but if you can cancel off the zeros, that's an average of around 75,000 euro per employee, which is much above the average in the economy. In terms of the stuff they build here, they build about 5 or 6 billion euro worth of buildings in Ireland every year, whether it's data centres or high-end manufacturing plants in pharmaceuticals. And of course, the cherry on top now is the corporation tax, which really is something that Ireland didn't seek out to target at all. Back when this policy was started back in the late 60s, the tax rate in these companies when they came to Ireland was zero. Over a sequence of changes, some driven by our membership of the EU, more recent changes led by the OECD, that tax rate has risen to 15%. And also the OECD have led changes in the rules. Now, go back 10, 15 years ago, there'd be a lot of stories about US companies reporting vast amounts of profits in Bermuda, the Cayman Islands, and in some cases nowhere at all. Of course, they have no substance. They don't have their factories over there because they can do very little there. But they were able to link the profits to their intellectual property and locate that in those jurisdictions. And what the OECD said is that companies must have a greater link between their profit and their substance. And for many of these companies, the key areas where they had their substance that thought profit could be associated was either in the US, where they had their headquarters, or in Ireland, where they had very significant manufacturing, and particularly in the manufacturing sector. A lot of those profits came to Ireland. In the services, the Googles, the Facebooks, they kind of migrated their profits from the Caribbean islands back to the US. But in terms of manufacturing, a lot of that profit came to Ireland, where the high-end facilities were. And we've seen a huge surge in corporation tax. As I said, that's what we targeted. Like when we were the poor economy with mass immigration, Ireland wanted jobs. So we got the investment and now we have the jobs. And the cherry on top now is this corporation tax. And it is enormous. Go back 10 years ago and Ireland collected about 5 billion euro in corporation tax. A pretty significant sum, but it wasn't moving the dial up or down. If you look at where we are going to be this year for 2025, we're probably on track to collect around 30 billion euro in corporation tax. With a population of just over 5 million, that's 6,000 euro for every man, woman and child in the country. For a household of 4, it's about 25,000 euro. That is coming from a very small number of US companies. It is a huge contribution. And as Jonathan says, this is now having an impact on the public finances. One thing is, this money has come in so quickly and we can't really have control over it. So that if the rules were to change in the other direction, perhaps that could drop down. So while Ireland is benefiting hugely at the moment, and it is making the public finances look strong at a headline position, as Jonathan says, we're running surpluses. Now, of the 30 billion in corporation tax that's due to be collected, if you look at the surplus the government plans on running next year, it plans on running a surplus of 5 billion. So pretty much all that money that's coming in this booming corporation tax is being spent. If there was to be a change, and no one is predicting a change, like we're not seeing legislation coming through US Congress, these companies continue to be profitable, but there could be speed bumps out there that would cause that amount to fall. If that was to fall, well, that headline surplus would disappear pretty quickly. Now, no one is predicting that, at least in the short term, but it does show that as quickly as the money is coming in, it is going back out.
Barry, what is it about Ireland, do you think, apart from the tax regime and the corporation rate, what do you think about Ireland that makes it so attractive for these American companies? Is it the young educated workforce, the fact that we speak English? What is it about our location that brings them here?
Well, that's it. In a time, we're a neutral country and it's a global crisis that can brew from time to time. You know, we're a very highly skilled, intelligent country. We say it's the land of saints and scholars, and we have a proud history of academic work, not only in the sciences, in the arts and humanities as well. So I think, I work in UCC where there's graduate programs. It attracts a lot of Canadians as well, people from Asia. And this is a very pride. There's a cultural connection that grows. I know in UCD there's a Confucius Centre that's linked with China as well.
So in Dublin.
In Dublin, yeah. So there is this internationalisation of academia, and I embrace that as a staff member to get international students, and I believe that they can then become ambassadors for Ireland when they return to their home countries, and it can foster collaborations which could have knock-on effect for many years. Yeah.
Thanks, Barry. Jonathan, just on the whole issue of politics and the Irish leader, Taoiseach, or Prime Minister Micheál Martin, do you think he's a lucky leader to have this magic money tree? Because many countries in Western Europe are really struggling. You look at the French, the Germans.
I think every politician would love to have this particular problem of a lot of money coming in that perhaps you weren't quite expecting. But Micheál Martin, we're in Micheál Martin's constituency where we are right now. And he's old enough to remember, as am I, when in the 1980s, Henry Ford's factory, building cars for Europe, just around the corner from us here, closed. And I think that shaped a lot of his politics. We never wanted to get into that situation again where we ended up being reliant on industry that could be done elsewhere for cheaper. So it creates a problem insofar as when you can't fix housing quickly, because that's a long-term fix, a mid-term fix, that's the kind of thing that will probably stay with them. But when history is written of this period, this probably will be looked back on. Despite all the challenges that exist, economically, this is Ireland's golden age. The question is how long it lasts.
Seamus, just on the issue of the money, politics, the short term, people looking to the next election, do you think the Irish government is doing enough long term with all these rivers and rivers of money?
Yeah, there's some element of it there. Like, we are running public surplus, government surpluses, and they are setting some of that money aside into savings vehicles that are designed to cover some of these long-term costs like ageing, demographics, healthcare, maybe a transition due to climate change, etc. But understandably, the political system does have a very short-term view. The longest they look is the next election, and possibly most of their focus is on what tonight's headline will be. So that sort of short-term view is something that's there. But we are maybe seeing a change now, particularly with the more recent budget, that did take a more medium-term view. We have problems. One thing we find ourselves now, we've moved from an economy that had lots of people in immigration and no jobs to when we need people to come. Ireland has a rapidly growing population. We've employment opportunities, but maybe not the people to fill all of those. So we need people to come. And one issue we face is housing. There's problems in relation to planning, problems in relation to water provision, electricity, and other things. Now, the more recent budget we had in Ireland suggested that there would be a view to trying to address some of those. And that has to happen over a 3 or a 5 or a 7 year period. You're not going to do that overnight. So there is maybe some suggestion of more medium-term thinking arising, but it is very much still short-term. As the money is coming in, a lot of it has been spent. Yes, there's an emphasis on capital spending, but if you look at the Irish government's current day-to-day spending, that has been growing very rapidly over the last number of years, and sort of the cushion of corporation taxes allowed that to happen. We haven't really faced the hard or difficult choices. Ireland is in a much different position to other countries. We can see what's happening over in the UK, and particularly we see what's happening in France, where they can't get a government even to stay together long enough to hold a cabinet meeting. They're changing every 2 or 3 weeks, although the same Prime Minister's gone back again, and I'm not sure whether that leads to further difficult or further kind of progress. They have a very large deficit. Their debt is ballooning over 100% of GDP, whereas in Ireland, as we say, we're running these surpluses. And remarkably, compared to where we were 15, 20 years ago, when we had the crash that Jonathan referred to, and we ended up not able to finance ourselves. We couldn't borrow in international markets. Ireland had to turn to the likes of the EU and the IMF for emergency funding. We ended up in a bailout. Now, maybe 15, 20 years later, we're running surpluses. Debt is not a headline issue. It's come down significantly. And we have the ability to do that long-term thinking. But I'm not necessarily sure we're doing enough of it. We could do more, and we could set up very large investment funds where actually what we would gain from would be the income those funds would generate. If we take the likes of Norway. Now, we're not Norway, but Norway has set aside very large of its oil revenues. And actually, if you look at the amount it earns every year just in dividends, that could cover a huge amount of expenditure. That would cover healthcare costs. That would cover some demographic costs. But we're not there yet. So yes, there is some more medium-term thinking, not quite the long-term thinking we might be hoping for, but it is still very much driven by the short term.
Seamus. Barry, to you, a lot of young people will be watching Roundtable and thinking pharma industry, loads of money and opportunity. Just what advice would you give young people thinking about going into something that you lecture in, pharmacology?
Yeah, so pharmacology is understanding how medicines work, and there's a phrase we use called bench to bedside, which is involved in the discoveries that are found at the lab or in industry and how that translates to a patient. So we study pharmacology from the discovery right up to clinical trials, and in Ireland there's great opportunities in universities, both in the four big ones around, and there's also technical universities where you may have undergraduates specifically trained in certain skills for the pharmaceutical sector. So I think there's opportunity across the spectrum, also in clinical trials. In Ireland, we actually probably don't perform as well as other European countries in funding clinical trials, and that's something maybe has to be addressed as well.
Thanks, Barry. Jonathan, final point to you. For all the talk about Trump's tariffs, it's clear the pharma industry in Ireland is going to go from strength to strength.
It generates a good headline and causes a little bit of a panic every now and then. But what is very clear is that President Trump is treating pharmaceuticals very differently to other products. And the reason for that is he has to import them. And if he puts tariffs on them, it increases the cost of things like Medicaid and Medicare. So therefore, the government has to pay more. Couple that with the fact that the Irish industry, we are decades into this process. We've got indigenous manufacturing. We have got companies that are spinning out and doing their own thing, possibly creating the next big product alongside our existing multinationals. So the future is bright, and it's all down to planning and work that was put in decades ago.
Jonathan Healy, thank you, and Seamus Coffey and Barry Boland as well. Fascinating insight into Ireland's thriving pharmaceutical industry. That's it from us, but if you want more debate and discussion, please head to YouTube, search for TRT World Roundtable, and if you like what you see there, do hit that subscribe button. But for me, Enda Brady, on the road here with Roundtable at Páirc Uí Chaoimh in Cork in Ireland, thank you for watching. We'll see you again soon.